Good evening. My name is João, and today I would like to share with you a true experience that profoundly marked my family and me. Our life was always simple. We never accumulated many material possessions, but that was never an obstacle to our happiness. I grew up on farms where my father worked as an employee, and that was our reality. Our family consisted of 5 people: my parents, tireless workers, myself, and my 2 younger brothers. Despite our modesty, we always had enough to be happy with the daily gifts of life. The narrative I wish to share occurred when I was just 14 years old. At that time, I had already assumed some responsibilities as an older brother, helping my parents and looking after my siblings. We resided on a farm that we considered our home, as my father had dedicated many years of his life laboring there. Everything changed suddenly when the farm was sold to a new owner. This new landlord decided to implement significant changes, which included the dismissal of several employees, my father among them. It was a severe setback for all of us, as, in addition to the job loss, we received the news that we would have to vacate the dwelling where we lived. The new owner granted us a meager deadline of just 1 month to find a new place for our move. The situation was truly delicate. My father, after receiving a modest sum for his long dedication to the farm, found himself facing an uncertain future. The amount he possessed was insufficient even to guarantee a roof over our heads for a reasonable period in the city. With urgency pressing us, he began searching for new job opportunities on neighboring properties, but luck was not on our side. There seemed to be no vacancies available anywhere. Once, on a routine trip to the local grocery store to purchase essentials, my father took the opportunity to converse with the owner, a man known for having good connections in the community. He inquired if there was news of any available work, anything that could help our family overcome that difficult time. By a fortunate coincidence, or perhaps by fate, the grocery store owner had heard of a caretaker position on a small property in the neighboring town. A friend of his needed someone reliable to look after the place, which was somewhat neglected. Without hesitation, he provided the contact to my father, who wasted no time and went to meet about this possible new employment, harboring the hope that this could be the chance to rebuild our lives away from the farm we would soon leave behind. One day, my father encountered this man in the city who was looking for someone to take care of a property he owned, which was abandoned because no one wanted to live there. The place was far from the city and had no electricity. Even knowing how difficult it would be to live in such a remote place without power, my father decided to accept the proposal. He didn't have many alternatives at that moment. The property owner explained that initially my father would only need to keep the place in order to prevent its complete abandonment. There were no crops to cultivate or animals to care for, but the owner promised that he would send a tractor so that my father could prepare the land for future planting. When my father informed us about the move, my brothers and I were surprised. We would have to walk for over an hour to get to school, and we would no longer have television due to the lack of electricity. However, we didn't have much choice. It was that or become homeless. A few weeks after our move, the property owner fulfilled his promise and sent a tractor. My father began working the land, and gradually the property began to transform. He repaired the damaged fences and made some renovations to the house, preparing everything to receive some animals. The distance from the city wasn't that problematic, but the lack of electric light made our daily lives quite difficult. Despite this, we adapted and learned to live that way. One day, my father decided to go to a small store located in a village near where we lived. He needed to buy some items for the house and also intended to bring some chickens to raise on the property. Upon arriving there, the store owner asked where he was residing. My father mentioned the name of the property, and suddenly everyone in the store stopped talking and stared at him. My father was perplexed and asked if he had said anything inappropriate. A man and the store owner exchanged glances, and then the store owner said, "Look, I'll be honest with you, nobody who moves there stays for more than 2 months." My father inquired if this was due to the distance from the city or the lack of electricity, but the store owner merely shook his head in silence. The other man then spoke up. "You might think I'm crazy, but that place is cursed. They say the hound of hell roams there. If I were you, I'd leave while there's still time." My father was never one to believe in ghost stories or things of that nature. He thanked the men, took his purchases and the chickens, loaded everything onto the small tractor cart, and returned home. He figured those men were just trying to scare him. 2 days after that conversation, it was already very late at night when we began to hear strange noises around the house. It sounded like a large animal, like a horse or an ox, was circling nearby. Initially, we didn't pay much attention, assuming it might be some animal that had escaped from a neighboring property. However, shortly after, we heard a commotion coming from the chicken coop. My father got up immediately and opened the window to try to see what was happening, but the darkness was such that we could only hear the agitated chickens. He decided not to go outside, as without light and without a weapon, it would be very dangerous to confront a wild animal. The next day at sunrise, my father went to the chicken coop to check what had happened. The place was completely ravaged. It looked as if a hurricane had passed through. Only 1 or 2 chickens had managed to escape and hide in the undergrowth. That day, my mother decided that we wouldn't go to school, as she was apprehensive, fearing that the creature that attacked the chickens might attack us too. Even during the day, my father took the meager amount he had saved and went to the store to buy 2 powerful flashlights and a gas lantern. The lantern illuminated much, more than the oil lamps and candles we used. Upon seeing my father, the store owner asked if everything was all right and if he had witnessed anything unusual. My father recounted the attack on the chicken coop. The store owner became serious and said, "Friend, you need to get out of that place as soon as possible before something bad happens to you or your family." My father explained that he had nowhere to go and no resources to move. The store owner then took an old pistol that he had kept and gave it to my father, saying, "Take this. The gun is a bit old and rusty, but it still works. If you see anything strange, just aim and shoot." My father thanked the store owner, took the gun, and returned home. We didn't know what was going to happen, but at least now we had something to protect ourselves. That night, we decided that everyone would sleep together in the same room. My father didn't tell us about the story he had heard at the store. He believed that the attack on the chicken coop had been the work of a cougar or some other wild animal, and not the so-called hound of hell mentioned by the man. During the night, we again heard those strange noises around the house. It sounded like someone was breathing heavily near the windows. My brothers were asleep, but my father, my mother, and I stayed awake. We heard those sounds throughout the night. It seemed like something was trying to force the windows open to get into the house. I remember my father sitting on the edge of the bed with the gun in his hand, staying awake all night, keeping an eye on everything. He was ready to protect us if necessary. It was a long and frightening night, but we managed to get through it. The next day, after a night full of fear and uncertainty, my father decided to share with my mother and me the conversation he had at the store. He spoke about the so-called hound of hell that, according to the men at the store, roamed our area. Upon hearing that, I immediately thought, "Dad, that must be a werewolf." But my father, who never believed in such things, insisted that it was a cougar or some other wild animal. He stated that if the creature returned, he would shoot it. My mother was very worried about all of this. She suggested that we should leave there and go to the house of one of her sisters who lived in the city. But my father didn't want to leave. He said that we had to face whatever came our way. So my mother decided to take my brothers and go to her sister's house. She invited me to go with them, but I decided to stay. I wanted to remain and help my father face whatever was haunting our property. I knew that we had to be strong and confront our fears no matter what happened. That was my decision. I decided to stay and fight alongside my father. During the day, we kept busy reinforcing all the windows and doors of our house. We were preparing to confront something unknown and terrifying that was haunting our property. My father, thinking quickly, decided to use our last 2 chickens as bait. He placed them in the chicken coop, hoping to lure the creature into an area where we could see it. When night fell, we stayed silent inside the house, tense and ready to act. It wasn't long before we heard the familiar noises around the house, followed by the loud clucking of the chickens. It was then that we decided to act. We opened a window that overlooked the chicken coop and simultaneously turned on our flashlights. What we saw at that moment was something we could never have imagined. It was a creature with dark, shiny fur and a terrifying face that resembled a deformed dog. When the light from the flashlights hit the creature, it dropped the chicken it held in its claws and stood still for a few seconds, as if it were blinded by the light. Then the creature did something even more surprising. It rose up on its hind legs, revealing a height of almost 6.5 feet. My father, without hesitation, grabbed his gun and fired in the direction of the creature. Startled by the sound of the shot, the creature quickly returned to all fours and fled into the woods, disappearing from our sight. As soon as the sun rose, we began packing our belongings to leave that place. Before going to the city, we made a stop at the local store to return the gun we had used the night before and tell the store owner what we had seen. The store owner listened to us attentively and said, "I believe you. That cursed creature has been disturbing our village, but it seems to have a special preference for that property. We don't know why." After saying goodbye to the store owner, we went to the city to find my mother. Since that day, we have never again lived in rural areas and even avoid visiting such places. I prefer not to reveal the exact location where all this happened, as I don't know if anyone lives there today or if the creature still haunts that area. Have a good night.